All right, well, we'll get started. It's just after 6 here. I want to thank everyone who is watching for joining us for the McHenry County Council of Mayors public outreach meeting for our surface transportation program. My name is Emily Dauscher. I'm the planning liaison for the Council of Mayors. And with me tonight is Executive Director Scott Hennings. And I just want to thank Colleen and Ryan from the McHenry County DOT for helping us out behind the scenes tonight. Before we get into things, I want to talk a little bit about webinar etiquette. If you're on Facebook Live, you can use the comment box to submit any sort of questions or comments you have. If you are watching this on Zoom, you can also use the chat function to send any questions or comments you have. If you at any point need to call in, or if anyone calls in, press *9 to raise your hand so we can unmute you and you can verbally give your question or comment over the phone. If you need to remute yourself on the phone, you can press *6. So what we're going to talk about tonight, we're going to talk about what the Council of Mayors is. We're going to talk about what the Surface Transportation Program is. We're going to go through briefly the application process, and we're going to talk about what the STP staff recommended program is and what that means. And we're going to go through all of the projects that are recommended for funding and recommended for contingency and what that means. We're going to stop in between each section, and we're going to talk about, or we're going to take any of your questions or comments if there are any. And then we're going to take some time at the end to address any other questions or comments you have. We're hoping this presentation will take about 40 minutes with any time at the end for those questions. It should be noted that this is part of our public comment period for the Surface Transportation Program that goes from June 20th to July 20th. So if after the meeting you have any further questions, you can send me an email. You'll see that at the end of the presentation. And it will be included along with these comments as part of our comment period that we present to the council. So if you have any other questions that we can't answer tonight, we are going to post answers on our website, which will be at the end of this presentation. And if it's a project-specific question, we will forward that on to the appropriate municipality and post those as well. So without further ado, Scott, you can take it away to talk about the council mayors.
Yeah, so I just want to start by saying I've had a few people text and email that Zoom is asking for a password or a passcode. If you're joining us via Facebook, we appreciate it. If there's others that you know that are trying to watch us via Zoom, just encourage them to join us via Facebook Live on the DOT's Facebook page. So now that that's taken care of, I just kind of wanted to go over what is the Council of Mayors. We get this question a lot, and so I think it's important right up front to address what is the council. The Council of Mayors is primarily tasked with providing a conduit for communication between local elected officials and regional transportation agencies. The sub-regional Council of Mayors are defined by specific geographic boundaries. There's 6 councils located in suburban Cook County, and then there's each collar county, DuPage, Lake, McHenry, Kane, Kendall, and Will have their own Council of Mayors as well. The McHenry County Council of Mayors membership consists of all 28 of our municipalities, as well as the County of McHenry. At our bi-monthly meetings, the members of the council are represented by a wide range of elected officials, village administrators, public works directors, and engineers. The McHenry County Council is currently chaired by Village President Rick Mack from the Village of Ringwood, and our Vice Chair is Village President Bob Nunemaker from Fox River Grove. Emily Dauscher, as was said, is the planning liaison, providing the majority of the support for the council members, and I act as the executive director for the council. And one other thing to note, we get this question a lot, is the Council of Mayors is different than the Council of Governments here in McHenry County. As I stated earlier, the Council of Mayors functions as a link between local governments and regional transportation and planning agencies. We are also charged with programming federal STP dollars, Surface Transportation Program dollars, to local projects here in McHenry County. The McHenry County Council of Governments, on the other hand, operates independently from us to promote sub-regional coordination and collaboration between municipalities on a broader set of issues, most of which are unrelated to transportation whatsoever. So with that being said, I'll now turn it back over to Emily so she can talk more about the STP program.
Thank you. So what is this funding that we're talking about? It is the Surface Transportation Program. This quote on the screen here is taken from CMAP's website, so thank you to them. Basically, the Surface Transportation Program is a program that is given out, all this money is given to the states. Then in the state of Illinois, it is allocated partially to the urbanized areas over 200,000 people. As you might guess, this includes the Chicago region. The interesting thing about the Chicago region when it comes to the Surface Transportation Program is that our money is then given from CMAP, the MPO, to each of the councils in the city of Chicago. So we have a little more local control over how we spend our money instead of having CMAP spend it on behalf of the entire region. You can see on the screen here, the next 5 years is what we're planning for and the amounts of money that we have to spend in each year. It's important to note that these are federal fiscal years, not your regular calendar year. So they have to be spent between October and September. Each allotment has to be spent in the year that it is given to us. You'll see down at the bottom a list of eligible projects in McHenry County. This could be different than some of the other councils throughout the region, but these are the ones that we have decided are eligible for our funding. It's also good to know what kind of streets are eligible for this federal funding. It's not usually going to be your local cul-de-sac or a side street. It's going to be the streets that are, see higher traffic volumes, they're a little bit bigger, maybe a little more important to getting from point A to point B. There are certain, more specific determinations for that, but that's all I'll get into right now. The last thing I want to note is that starting in 2022, this will be done every 2 years instead of having to fill a gap of 5 years. So over the next 5 years, we are going to have almost $18.5 million to spend. And now, Scott, back to you.
Thanks, Emily. So I just wanted to go over the application process when members apply for this STP funding. Historically, the state of Illinois and CMAP have allowed the regional councils to structure their application process kind of as they see fit. This freedom and local control continued into the 2020 call for projects with the understanding that all councils must still try to link their individual STP programs to the principles behind the region's Onto 2050 plan that was approved a couple of years ago. Our council convened an STP working group in 2019. We met 3 times to kind of look at our old application and our methodology to revise and update it into the 2020 call for projects. So much of the application remained unchanged from the previous version. The council decided to maintain the 80-20 federal-local split for the construction phase, and also maintained our $1.5 million award cap. But some of the application was changed during this cycle. In place of awarding points to communities with small populations, as was done in previous call for projects, the council implemented a needs-based point system. Under this new system, high-need cohort 4 communities, which you can see on the screen, were given 6 bonus points on their application, on their project applications, while lower need communities were given fewer or actually no bonus points in the case of cohort 1. In addition, the council decided to allow cohort 4 communities that were awarded funding to reduce their local match to only 10% using what are called toll credits. Another major change was that was put in place is that limiting each municipality to only 2 awarded projects during this call for projects. This was done to ensure that all communities had a reasonable chance to receive federal funding. Emily, could you go to the next slide? Another change to the application process was that resurfacing projects were taken out and scored differently than all other types of projects. This is something new for the 2020 call for projects that we didn't do in previous calls. All project types, regardless whether it's a resurfacing or something else, were scored on a 100-point scale. However, different weights were assigned for resurfacing projects than versus other types of projects. For example, since resurfacing projects are primarily focused on improving the pavement condition of the roadway, the current condition of the pavement is factored into 30% of the application score for those types of projects. On the other hand, other types of projects, such as intersection projects, are more focused on other areas, such as vehicle level of service, safety, multimodal improvements. So more points were awarded under those categories than they were for resurfacing projects. In both systems, however, 25% of the total points were awarded for how well the project advances the goals of On to 2050, the region's comprehensive plan. And then next slide, Emily.
All right, so that's how the communities applied for the Surface Transportation Program. This is going to be kind of the most in-depth part of the presentation, so bear with me as we go through this. The staff recommended program is the main document that kind of shows, you know, all of the projects. It shows what they put on their applications, how much money they're requesting, and when they're requesting it out of those 5 years. And then we have the main part, which is the staff recommendation. So it's important to know that this is not finalized. It has to be approved by the council. So since we're still in the public comment period, there's still opportunity for the council to decide to change, or maybe a project will drop out or come in, or, you know, whatever they decide. So we're going to ask that if you do have any questions about this, that you hold them until the end. So this is the program. It's kind of a lot, but what we're going to do is go through it piece by piece. We're going to start by going through each section, and then we're going to go through what all of these different colors mean and stuff. So first up, on the very top here, you'll see what says, it says council marks, if you can read this. The council marks are just the amount of funding that we have for every year that you saw on one of those previous slides. This is the key to kind of the different colors and abbreviations that I'm going to explain. This is the project information section. This is basic information about each of the projects that applied. You can see every single project here. Most of it's pretty self-explanatory. You see the project column is just the project name, it's where it is. The municipality is the municipality where it's located. The project type, it's one of 2, resurfacing or roadway and intersection. That's what the R and I means. But what I want to focus on in this section is the rank column and the phases column. So as you might guess, after we scored all of the applications, we gave each project a rank. What may be a little confusing though is that some of the projects have a number repeated. It's not actually a tie. It's the same project because we scored each one, but the project applied for 2 different phases, right? So you could, like Scott said, you could apply for the engineering, you could apply for construction, you could apply for both. So you could apply for up to 3. When that happens, you know, it's one project split into 2 or 3 parts. So in order to make sure we're better organized, we split the project into those two phases, so they're 2 separate lines. It is possible that one project has a phase that is funded and a phase that's not. You'll kind of see that as we go through this. And then that right column where it says phases, it's just, those indicate which phase they applied for. So on the applications, we asked for the amount of funding that they would like to receive and the year they would like to receive it. You see at the top of this section, we have those same numbers, right? The amounts that we can spend, we can't go over. So for now, we have those listed there, and below that, we have all of the requested dollar amounts in the requested year. Now, it's possible that we could get more money in the future, but for now, we have to assume that we're getting these exact amounts. Because of that, you'll see, there's more projects that want to go in 2021 and 2022 than 2023 through 2025. We can't really do that. So that is where the recommended program comes in. The recommended program is what we recommend, given all of the projects and the years they want to go in and how much money we have available and how much money they're asking for. This is what the staff ultimately is going to recommend. As a reminder, this may or may not be approved in this form by the council. So at the top of the recommended program, we have each of the 5 years. And then we have a row that says programmed and a row that says balance. The colors don't mean anything here. The programmed row just indicates the total amount of awards we are planning on, that we are recommending be funded in that year. The balance is just the difference between that programmed row and the total funding that we have from CMAP in that year. What tended to happen was we would start with the top ranked projects, and as we moved through the list, we would start with their requested year and their requested dollar amount. And if we had that money available in that year, we would then place it into this program, as you can see. In some cases, we ran out of money before we got to a project. So we would we'd move it back 1 year at a time until we were able to fund it. In some situations, we were not able to fund it, as you can see at the bottom there, where the projects in white say unable to fund phase. So that's how we kind of determined what project went where and how much money, based on how much money they got. You'll notice there's a project number in bold here. That project is one specific project in Spring Grove that I'm going to talk about in a little bit, but they're kind of a unique situation, and they didn't receive 100% of the funding that they had asked for. So on the far right here, we just have the funding totals for the 5 years, the amount of money that we're going to fund, and then we have an unfunded column. So over the next 5 years, we are not funding almost $6.3 million in project phases, and we are funding almost $17.9 million. So now I'm going to talk about the colors here. At the top, you see these two projects are in gray. These projects actually received money in the last call for projects, but didn't get completed. So the council allowed these two communities to request that their projects get placed into this current call for projects. So that way they can be awarded the money that they were awarded previously and get to construction and get finished. Most councils have this type of provision. It's also called a grandfathered project. So this isn't unique to McHenry County.
And that being said, those projects, even though they were grandfathered into our current program, we did rank them as if they reapplied for this current call. And as you can see there, they ranked rather high. It was 8th and 9th overall out of 26 projects. So it's, these are quality projects that really deserve to be in our program, regardless of whether they were grandfathered or not.
Exactly. So now you'll see these projects are in green. Some are full projects and some are just project phases. The green means that we were able to place this project or a project phase in the year they requested with the amount of money they requested. You'll see some of these projects project phases are in blue. Prospect Street, for example, has one project phase in green and one in blue. That's because their engineering phase got funded in the year they requested with the amount of money they requested, and their construction phase did not. Because the blue means that the project got funding, but it had to be pushed back a year. We couldn't move any projects forward, we can only move them back. Again, you'll see that Spring Grove project there in bold. I'm going to talk a little bit right now about why we decided to do that. There's other projects that didn't get phases funded or entire projects that didn't get funded. So why did we give Spring Grove $480,000 when they asked for $1.5 million? So one of the goals of the council was that we really wanted everyone to get something. And whether that is just some engineering or a full $1.5 million construction project, we wanted to make sure that we would be able to spread the wealth as much as possible. Now, Spring Grove, they ranked 14th, and they were going to be the highest ranked project that didn't receive any funding whatsoever. So after conversations with our chair, Rick Mack, we decided to give them the remainder of the 2025 allotment, that $480,000. So that way we can look for opportunities to give them more funding as we get closer to 2025. One of the benefits of them being in the program now, as opposed to not getting any funding, is that we can then use other sources of funding, STP or otherwise, to help make up that difference. If we had decided not to program them at all, then they would go on the contingency list with the other projects that didn't get funded, and we would have to see if other funding was available. Right now, they are only at that $480,000, but like I said, we're hoping that we can get more money for that project in the future. As I mentioned, there was a contingency list. Those are the projects that you can see here in white. These are projects, like I said, we couldn't fund them. And there's two reasons for that. One is that we didn't have money. Like, we really couldn't fund them. We didn't have the available funds in any given year to fund their project or a project phase, as the case is for Lakemore. The other reason that a project would end up on the contingency list is that they already had 2 awarded projects. As we mentioned earlier, we wanted to, share the wealth and cap the number of projects awarded per municipality to 2. So in the case of McHenry and Lake in the Hills, they applied for 3 projects, so their lowest ranking project automatically went to the contingency list. That doesn't mean it can't get funded in the future. The contingency list is essentially a waiting list. If a project drops out or a project wants to go on the contingency list, then we can take one of those projects that are on the contingency list and move them up into the active program where they will receive funding.
It should be noted, though, that projects on the contingency list still have to make progress to show that their project is moving forward and hitting their deadlines in order to be brought up into the active program. So if there's anyone from the cities that have a project on the contingency list, make sure your project continues to move forward and hit your deadlines so that it's in a good position to move up eventually.
So that's all I have for the program. Thank you for bearing with me on that. So if there's no questions or comments, we're going to move into talking about each of the 26 projects that applied for funding for this call. I'm going to have Scott start, but before he starts, there's a few things that I wanted to mention. There are project descriptions and project information on each slide for each project. These are taken directly from the project applications. So there may be a question that you have about a project description that we aren't able to answer because we didn't actually write these project descriptions. That would be a case where we would have to ask the municipality directly. Second, there are maps on each slide showing the project location. These are not all at the same scale. Some projects are tiny intersections, some are 2 miles long. So just be aware of that. Additionally, the projects are going to be sorted by that construction year. So this is when they will hopefully be going to construction. It's not when they received engineering money. And then within each year, they will be sorted alphabetically by the municipality.
So before I go into the specific projects, I did want to mention one thing if we haven't already. For those that are new to the Council of Mayors and really don't know much about us, we have a website. It's McHenryCountyCOM.org. The spreadsheet that Emily just showed is posted right on our homepage, and you can go and download it and reference it as I go through each of the projects here, because I understand that it's important to have some background on the projects, but sometimes people like to see the bigger picture as well. So let's go into this is FY21, so federal fiscal year 2021 projects that are recommended to move forward to receive STP funding. The first one is a roundabout project within the village of Algonquin at the intersection of Cary Road and Main Street, which used to be Illinois 31 before the bypass was built, the Western Bypass Project. Cary Road is a county road, and so the county is actually an active participant in the project as well, and will be financially contributing towards their leg of the project. This project was submitted by the village of Algonquin. The village asked for and is scheduled to receive $1.5 million for construction, which is the maximum amount that any project can be awarded. Importantly, you'll see the total project cost of $5.2 million. This project is actually one stage of a multi-stage improvement to the downtown Algonquin area. With this project, the village also received $1.2 million in federal transportation enhancement program funding to add bicycle and pedestrian accommodations heading south into the downtown. So the project cost is not just the roundabout, but it also includes a lot of other ancillary work that are all helping to improve the downtown of Algonquin. This project ranked 5th overall out of 26 projects, and so that's why you see it here scheduled to receive funding. So you can go to the next slide, Emily. The next project is a resurfacing project. So the first one was an intersection project, so it was scored under the intersection category. This one from Lake in the Hills, resurfacing of Reed Road from Lakewood Road to the village limits, which end just west of Cambridge, Annandale. So it's a small resurfacing project, about a 1/4 mile in length. The village is scheduled to upgrade ADA infrastructure as part of the resurfacing project. And they're scheduled to receive $78,649, which is 80% of the construction cost of the resurfacing project. And as required, the village will then be matching that with $20,000 of their own local matching funds. And this project ranks 16th overall in our program. Next slide. The next project to receive funding in FY21 is a project in the village of Lakewood. The village of Lakewood applied for resurfacing of Haligus Road from Lakewood Road to just north of Ballard Road, which is the village limits. As part of the resurfacing project, the village is going to be adding share the road bicycle signage, because as somebody who drives this road quite a bit, I do see quite a lot of bicyclists that use Haligus and Ballard actually to get west of 47 to get where it's easier to ride your bicycle. Lakewood was awarded $712,726 for the construction phase of this project, And this project actually ranked extremely high. It was ranked second overall out of 26 projects. Next slide. The next one is it's a resurfacing of Valley View Road in the village of Prairie Grove. This resurfacing project goes from basically from Nish Road down to the village limits of Prairie Grove, which is just north of Terracotta Avenue. For this one, you can see the description there. This village is scheduled to receive $527,417 in STP for the construction phase in FY21. All of these projects I just mentioned are either in engineering or they can complete the engineering in time to have this project ready to go into construction in FY21. This project ranked 13th overall in our program, and that's why it's in the program today. And then go ahead. And the last project we have in FY21 is one of our grandfather project, actually. So Emily mentioned that we had 2 projects that were grandfathered from our previous program into this program. This is one of them in the village, or in the city of Woodstock. It's a proposed roundabout at the 5-corner intersection of Madison, South, and Lake Street. This project scored very well in the last call for projects. It scored 8th overall in our current call for projects. And it is also scheduled to receive $1.5 million, ADA upgrades, pedestrian accommodations, roadway lighting at the intersection itself. Overall, in fact, I know there was some high school students in Woodstock that actually looked also at how to incorporate potentially some stop controls underneath the viaduct that the railway goes under, because I know that's been an issue for how to control traffic as they go under that 1-lane bridge just near this intersection here. So it's a great project, and we're looking forward to getting this one constructed in 21. And that's all the projects in FY21, and Emily will go over some of the projects that are scheduled to receive funding in FY22.
That's right. So first up, we have a project in Bull Valley. It's a resurfacing project on Mason Hill Road. I believe this project was number 1 overall. It was a highly ranked project. They're going to be adding some bike signage here. There's going to be some native restoration and culvert replacement, but ultimately the bulk of the work will be resurfacing this stretch of the roadway. So we also have the second grandfathered project here in Crystal Lake. It's on North Main Street. The entire project limits go from Illinois 176 at the top down to where those railroad tracks are, if you can see those. The bulk of the work for the surface transportation money is going to be actually at the intersection of 176 and Main Street. They're going to be doing a whole new traffic signal, new turn lanes. They're going to be doing resurfacing work, pedestrian accommodations, kind of totally redoing this whole intersection. So the bulk of our $1.5 million is likely to be going directly to that intersection. Then we have 2 more projects in 2022. They're both pretty simple resurfacings. This one is in McCollum Lake Road. They're going to be doing the entire stretch of this roadway throughout the village limits, but it'll be pretty straightforward resurfacing project.
And you'll see there that this one is scheduled to receive 90% federal funding for the resurfacing construction, and that is because McCollum Lake is considered a cohort 4 high need community, and so that's kind of why, if you were wondering, why they're scheduled to receive additional funding.
This project is in Ringwood, again, a straightforward resurfacing on Ringwood Road. You'll see it's actually just off of McCollum Lake Road. But this one is going to do a little bit more and add some street trees along this segment of the roadway. And that's it for 2022.
Yeah, so going into 2023, federal fiscal year 2023, we have first the village of Greenwood is scheduled to receive some STP funding for a resurfacing, or actually a reconstruction of Howe Road and West Wonder Lake Road within the village limits. This is one of 4 projects that's scheduled to receive funding in FY23. The village initially requested funding for fiscal year 21 for this project. However, as Emily mentioned earlier, due to a lack of available STP funding in FY21, this project got pushed back and is now proposed or shown being awarded in FY23. As I mentioned with McCollum Lake, Greenwood is also a cohort 4 high need community. And so therefore, you can see this award is at the 90% level, 90% federal funding level. And this project, while it didn't rank as high as some others, it did rank high enough to be considered for funding. So it ranked 22nd overall out of 26. The next project is a project in Harvard. Harvard, like Greenwood and McCollum Lake, is also a high need community. And so they are shown at a higher funding level as well. This project is a proposed resurfacing of Diggins Street from Lawrence Road to Front Street. Harvard had requested funding in FY21. However, again, we didn't have enough funding in FY21 to fully fund this project there. So we asked Harvard if they'd be willing to move back to FY23, where we did have funding available at that time. This project ranked 17th overall in our program. And the next project is a project in the village of Johnsburg. Riverside Drive is scheduled to be resurfaced. While this is a resurfacing like the 2 I just mentioned, this one involves quite a bit of other accommodations for cyclists. So it's a 1 mile long project, and it's going to include sidewalk and a multi-use path along all of Riverside Drive to allow cyclists to safely travel in this area. This project scored very well. It was 4th overall out of 26. But again, it was forced to be delayed 1 year due to a lack of funding. And then the last project in our program is a project in the city of McHenry. Green Street basically from Illinois 120 all the way south to Charles J. Miller Road is scheduled to be resurfaced. In addition to upgrading ADA, the city is going to be adding sharrows for cyclists. So not a bike lane per se, not a shared use path, but simply sharrows which show vehicles that they should expect cyclists in the road. And it increases visibility for cyclists traveling on Green Street. They're also planting street trees along the entire 1.5 mile project, which should, not only add to, it should help cyclists and pedestrians travel more safely and more comfortably, but it's also a nice thing for neighbors that live along Green Street as well. And like the others projects I just mentioned, this project had requested funding in FY22. However, again, a lack of funding in that year pushed this project back to FY23. And this project ranked 6th overall.
Scott, before we go on to 2024, do you think you could explain the date range of the federal fiscal year?
Yeah, sure. So the federal fiscal year starts October 1st of the year. So FY21 starts October 1st of 2020, and it goes until the end of September of FY20 or of 2021. So it's different than the state fiscal year, which goes from July 1st to June 30th. It's also different than the county's fiscal year, which is December 1st through November 30th. And I know our trans agency friends they're on a calendar year basis, so they have January 1 through December 31st. So every different level of government has their own fiscal year. But again, when we talk about FY 2024, for example, we're really talking about October 1st of 2023 all the way through September 30th of 2024. Those are the date ranges associated with that.
Cool. So speaking of 2024, we've got a few projects here. This one is in Algonquin. It's on Suwanes Trail. This is a pretty involved project. They're going to be completely reconstructing the entire roadway. They're going to be adding some new sidewalks and also a path connection to the Prairie Trail. They're going to be doing a little bit of environmental work with some culvert installations and street trees and native plantings. You can see this is going to be a pretty big project that should be pretty exciting. So next up in Lake in the Hills, we have another resurfacing project. This is their second project. It's just going to be going from Raycow Road to Virginia. Next, we have a project in Marengo. This is another reconstruction project. So more than a resurfacing, they're going to be completely reconstructing the entire roadway from just south of Illinois 176 to just south of Prairie Street. They're also going to be adding a bike path and sidewalks and doing a little curb, gutter, and sewer work. I think one thing to point out about a number of these projects is the amount of bicycle accommodations and stormwater and environmental work that they're going to be doing. These are two of the things that we really wanted to emphasize in our methodology. And you can see that that's reflected in a lot of these projects.
Yeah, so just to build on that, you know, the cities did get extra points when they added things like sidewalk into their project application. Not only is it good for them to receive funding to add these things, but you know, I've talked with a lot of people from the city of Marengo who for quite some time have been wanting the bike path to be extended further south on Prospect Street, because there's a segment that exists there today, but a lot of the folks that want to get further south to US 20 can't make it the whole way without going on road. So this will allow them to safely travel the entire length.
And I believe this is the last project we have in 2024. It is in McHenry. This is their second project as well. This is on Bull Valley Road, where they're going to be doing some resurfacing work, and they're going to be adding ADA ramps and street trees along this half-mile segment. And that's it for 2024. All
right, so the last year in our program is FY 2025. There's only 3 projects scheduled to receive funding in 2025. And before I go into Huntley's project, this would be a good opportunity for me to mention the villages and the cities that are part of our Council of Mayors may stretch across county lines. So even though we're called the McHenry County Council of Mayors, Huntley is a good example of a village where almost half their population is south of the county line and half of it is north in McHenry. Kreutzer Road is a good example of this. That basically is the county line between Kane and McHenry County. But since they are part of the McHenry County Council of Mayors as the village, they could apply for projects in Kane County and they would still be eligible to receive funding from the McHenry County Council of Mayors. So Kreutzer Road is scheduled to receive $1.5 million for the reconstruction and realignment of the roadway between Illinois 47 and basically Halligus Road. The project is pretty extensive. It includes potential bridge replacement, railroad crossing improvements. The project is scheduled to add sidewalk for pedestrians. And for those that have driven in that area, you know that the curve as it goes onto the railroad, there's a lot of work from a realignment perspective that needs to go into a project like this. This project ranked 11th overall, so it was a quality project. However, it did slip from their requested year of FY23 down to FY25 because of lack of funding. The next project is a project in the village of Johnsburg, the Johnsburg Road Improvements Project. This is a straight resurfacing of Johnsburg Road. The village is scheduled to receive $1.5 million, which is the maximum for this project as well. And the limits are basically from Fairview Lane, just east of the roundabout at Johnsburg Road and Chapel Hill Road, all the way north to just north of Horizon Drive, which is basically the village limits on the north end, north of Ringwood Road there. The village will be upgrading the sidewalk network and the ADA ramps to maintain compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act. And again, like others, they wanted to go sooner in FY22. However, you know, we approached them and said, hey, we have enough money in FY25, and that's really when they're going to be scheduled to receive the funding. This project ranked 12th overall. And then finally, our last project is a project in the village of Spring Grove. Wynn Road is scheduled to be resurfaced and a bike path added in FY25. This is the project that Emily had mentioned. We were not able to give the fully requested amount. However, we gave them everything we had left in FY25, which came out to be about $480,000. In addition to the new bike path, there's signage improvements there, signage upgrades that are scheduled to take place, planting of street trees, and shoulder improvements, all of which are needed in this area. The project did rank very competitively at 14th overall. So it's very likely that in future calls for projects, the village could come up with the remaining $1 million amount that they are seeking for this project. And that's really all the projects that are going to be in our active program going forward, assuming the Council of Mayors votes to approve the stack recommendation. And Emily will go through the projects that didn't make the active program.
Right, so these are the contingency projects. As I said earlier, this is not, this is just a waiting list essentially. As funding becomes available, or if a project chooses to enter the contingency list or drop out of the program altogether, we can move projects from the contingency list into the active program. This contingency list does have an expiration date of 2022 when we have our next call for projects. So a project has to get into the active program by that point. As I said before, there are two reasons that a project would end up on the contingency list. You'll see these first four are all projects that have the entire project or one phase of the project that we could not fund because we did not have the money. The last two are projects from communities that already had two projects recommended for funding. So first up, we have a project in Lakemore. It's a huge project that is a reconstruction and a resurfacing. It would involve a bike path along a portion of the portion of the project, excuse me. But ultimately, we weren't able to fund their construction costs. We were able to give them enough money so they could fund both their preliminary engineering and their design engineering. Again, it could be that this project does end up in the active program in the future. Otherwise, should they choose to apply for STP funding in 2022, they should already have their engineering completed by that point. The next two projects are in Crystal Lake. They are both intersection projects. This one is on Three Oaks. It'll be a new traffic signal, new turn lanes, and also a multi-use path on the south side of Three Oaks Road from Route 31 to Monticello Drive. We were not able to fund this construction. We did not have enough money.
That's a great project that I know, even though the city of Crystal Lake was the one that applied, I know the village of Cary was very interested in extending a path because the village of Cary further east does have a shared use path on the south side of the road of Three Oaks Road. But once you get into the city of Crystal Lake near 31, cyclists are forced to transition back on road. So I think it is a worthwhile project that hopefully in future calls we can find some money for that project.
Skipping ahead here. So this isn't the other intersection project in Crystal Lake. It'll be a roundabout at the intersection of Crystal Lake Walkup and Grant Street. You see just right off there downtown in the metro station. This project is a resurfacing of Marengo Road in Harvard from 23 to Airport Road. Like the other before it, we didn't have enough money to fund the construction of this resurfacing project. This resurfacing in Lake in the Hills is on Crystal Lake Road. As you may recall, Lake in the Hills had two projects recommended for funding. Excuse me. that ranked higher than this project. So it automatically went on the contingency list once we knew that those other two projects were going to receive funding. And you have the same story here in McHenry on Dartmoor Drive. They were going to add some street trees and a shared bike lane, as well as ADA ramps, and doing resurfacing on this segment of Dartmoor. But again, they had two projects that received funding, so this one went on the contingency list.
And I do just want to reiterate, you know, after this current program is approved by the council, Emily and I are going to be immediately looking at, okay, how are we going to revise our scoring criteria, our application for the next call for projects, which is only a year and a half away. So while these projects were not fortunate enough to receive funding in the 2020 call, they'll have another opportunity right down the road. And if the cities remained engaged and want to be part of our steering committee, which helps revise our application, we would love to have differing perspectives on how we can make sure projects like these are funded going forward.
So that's it. I do see we have a comment from Greg Glover. Maybe consider future combined funding between municipalities. Scott, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we actually used to give bonus points if cities work together on a single project application. We all know here in McHenry County, you're often traveling from one city to the next, and because our cities are on the small side, the roadways don't stop at the city line. And so oftentimes it does make sense to work with your neighboring community on a single application. For whatever reason, we did remove that scoring criteria for this call for projects. But again, it's going to be something we look at, okay, maybe we bring that back in our next call for projects to give some cities an incentive to work together on a single project under the idea that we're all stronger when we are at the same table working together on these. So very good comment, Greg.
So that's all we have for you. Basically, going forward, again, our comment period is through July 20th. So if there's any other questions or comments people would like to submit, there is my email. You can also view our website, McHenryCountyCOM.org. After this, we'll go to program approval on July 23rd at our next Council of Mayors meeting, where the council will either choose to approve the program as we've recommended it, or if they'll make any alterations and approve that. After that, it kind of goes through the process of getting approved by CMAP, and then by the end of the year, we'll start seeing the first bits of funding getting approved. So I just want to thank everyone for joining us this evening. And again, anything comes up, please feel free to send me an email. That's my job. But thank you so much for joining us this evening.